how do you see the regulatory landscape shifting in Pakistan for the digital assets?
So this I think is a very early stage to talk about how this is evolving. Pakistan is a very interesting country, right? Because we at one side has a very strict foreign exchange policy. So the discussion revolving around crypto has to be seen in a very careful lens, because we, a country, have come out of the grey list of FATF. We have very watchful eyes on our financial transactions. We are at the cross section of a lot of regional activities going on. Is what I'm saying. So this initiative is very positive. I must say, the creation of council and the PIVA that has come up. But like I said, this is very early stage. Now, how does the licensing regime come up? How does over-regulation is balanced with the regulation that does that maintains regulatory oversight but does not stifle the innovation, that ensures that the agility and innovation, that is the true DNA of such a digital asset or such service providers, is not compromised. That makes sure that because you see the digital assets and which are not really restricted to countries alone, right? So we have Dubai, we have other countries that are also doing it. So one very important consideration in this whole regulatory framework, because we still have to see, by the way, State Bank, SECP, there's a lot more to come. PIVA and Council is not enough to roll out anything meaningful. So we also have to see how will Pakistan be seen by the investors when it comes to virtual assets. Will they consider or prefer Pakistan, or will they prefer some other country? So I think good initiative. It has to be adopted by all the stakeholders. The spirit of it has to be a true digitization where innovation is nurtured while ensuring the right balance between oversight and ambition.
And that's what rightly said. Thank you so much. Let's move on to.
Thank you. So I'm from the sort of, I guess, demand side to some extent. You could say, manufacturing, export, retail, and e-commerce. So from that lens, I mean, I think one thing that I was talking about in earlier panelists have also spoken about is, it's early stage. But I think rather than putting our head in the sand, I think it's good that we are approaching digital assets, virtual assets very positively. It's I think a long road, but I think on that road, I think we're going to see a lot of changes, as Shahzad also said. But I think from a commerce perspective, I think maybe down the line we'll see, maybe however long it will take, maybe not months, but maybe a year or two, that we can actually see this being implemented on the commerce side of things within domestically. But I think one thing is for sure that I think the regulations are needed to channelize what's already happening in the virtual asset space in Pakistan. And I think already look at the numbers already. I think they've already spoken about it. They're big numbers. So I think it's about trying to shift that and formalizing it as much as possible, which I think the regulations are definitely needed. And I think one thing we'll have to also look at, I think, when it comes to regulation is that why are people using, why are people investing or using or transacting in virtual assets? I think it's a lot about, the restrictions on the other sort of channels, which is a big, I think, point which you have to look at. Because if we're going to open up this channel, what will that entail for the, in terms of controls of inflows and outflows? Because I think one thing we have seen is that we want inflows for everything. We want FX inflows, we want all inflows. But for inflows, you have to open up outflows, right? So I think that, until we address that, I think elephant in the room of how are we going to enable those outflows to also happen and manage them and then find some place where they stabilize at some point. So it will take a leap of faith, I think. But of course, the regulatory frameworks are important, clarity is important, the licensing is very important. What I see at the moment is that the cross-border use cases perhaps seem to be one aspect, and the domestic use cases will also have to be looked at. So I think it's early days, but I think in terms of the steps, I think it's the right steps. But I think consultation and pilots and figuring out sort of what kind of, how it will work in each vertical and based on what the use cases will be, I think that's something to come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amit. So, I think a lot has been said. So, move from ambiguity to clarity now, it seems. While that has happened, we're a very informal crypto market, and that is now transitioned into a more regulated framework. But is it only going to be about compliance is the big question, because now what next challenge would be opening doors to investment, inclusion, financial inclusion, basically understanding required masses, और बहुत सारी training required masses. तो वही challenge है, और लेकिन ये बहुत बड़ी opportunity है, especially with Piwara and all these entities now building up. If we can kind of make the right alignment with the Sharia compliance and fact of we can actually become a credible player in the digital assets market for the region. Now, kind of well positioned that way. So we can talk.